It is the beginning of 2026, and you just finished looking at your bank statements from the holidays, and you are feeling that middle-class squeeze tighter than ever before. We have been told for decades that if we just work hard and wait until we are 65, we will be fine, but let us be real because the math has changed. As we sit here in 2026, inflation has not just stabilized, but it has reset the baseline of what it costs to simply exist. If you are looking at your Form 1040 for the upcoming tax season and wondering why your take-home pay feels smaller, despite that 3% raise, you are not crazy. You are witnessing the sunset of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act provisions and the reality of a higher tax environment. I want you to listen closely because I retired 5 years earlier than my planned date, and I did not win the lottery, and I did not inherit a tech empire. I did it by ruthlessly cutting 8 specific expenses that most people consider essential. And here's the kicker, because I do not miss a single one of them. Most financial gurus tell you to stop buying $7 lattes, but that is amateur hour. We are not here to talk about coffee, but rather structural wealth leaks that cost you $3,000 to $5,000 every single month without you even realizing it. Let us look at Bob, who is a central figure in this journey. Bob is 45 years old and a senior project manager making $165,000 a year. On paper, he is killing it, but in reality, Bob is on a treadmill that is speeding up. In 2025, Bob's property taxes jumped by 12%, and his auto insurance premium for his status symbol SUV spiked by 18% due to the 2026 rate adjustments we are seeing across the board. When Bob and I sat down to look at his 2026 tax projections, we realized something terrifying. If he stayed on his current path, he would not be retiring at 60, but instead he was looking at 68 or maybe 70. But then we applied the 8-cut rule, and by shifting just these 8 categories, we did not just save him a few bucks, but we shifted his financial independence number by nearly $900,000 over a 15-year horizon. Today, I am going to show you exactly what those 8 expenses are and the real messy 2026 math involving standard deductions versus itemized reductions and the truth about HSA maximization. The first major expense I cut, and the one that changed everything for Bob, was housing and the 2026 property tax trap. Move to a smaller house sounds like a cliche, but in 2026, it is a mathematical necessity. Bob was living in a 3,500 square foot home with a mortgage of $4,500, but the real problem was his escrow account. In 2025, property values stayed high, but local governments hiked millage rates. Bob's property tax jumped from $12,000 to $14,500. Look at your 2026 property tax assessment, because if you are in a high tax state, you are getting hammered, because the state and local tax deduction cap is a major talking point in 2026 legislation. Bob was losing thousands in deductions he could not take on his Schedule A of Form 1040. We sold Bob's house and moved him into a $450,000 townhome, which allowed him to slash his maintenance and utilities by $800 a month. That is $9,600 a year. And if Bob invests that into a low-cost S&P 500 index fund at a 7% average return in 5 years, that alone is $55,000. The second thing I cut was the perpetual payment of luxury transportation. Bob had an $850 monthly lease on a luxury SUV just to look successful at the office. In 2026, the average new car loan interest rate is hovering around 8.5% for good credit, and Bob was trapped in a depreciation death spiral. We looked at his records and realized he was losing $10,000 a year in pure depreciation. I told Bob to sell it, and he bought a 4-year-old Lexus in cash, which eliminated the payment and dropped his insurance premium by $120 a month because he was no longer carrying gap insurance for a lease. Third was the full-price health insurance and the HSA pivot. Bob was on a gold PPO plan paying $600 a month in premiums. We switched him to a high-deductible health plan with a health savings account. In 2026, the HSA contribution limits have increased to $4,300 for individuals and $8,550 for families. By putting that money into his HSA, Bob lowered his adjusted gross income on line 11 of his Form 1040 and saved about $2,100 in federal taxes immediately. He treats the HSA as a super Roth IRA, where he pays for current medical bills out of pocket and lets the HSA grow tax-free in low-cost funds. The fourth expense was the 1% vampire known as investment fees. Bob was paying 1.25% in assets under management fees to a wealth manager who just put him in standard mutual funds. On a $500,000 portfolio, that is $6,250 a year. In 2026, with the market being as volatile as it is, You cannot afford a 1.25% drag. I moved Bob to a self-managed 3-fund portfolio with an average expense ratio of 0.04%. Over 10 years, that 1.21% difference on a $500,000 portfolio, assuming 7% growth, is closer to $140,000 because of lost compounding. That is 2.5 years of Bob's life he was giving away for free. Before we go any further, I need to ask you to do something important for your future self. If you are finding value in this deep dive into 2026 financial reality, please hit the like button right now. It tells the algorithm that this kind of hard data is what people actually need instead of just fluff. And if you want to be part of a community that is actually taking action to retire early, despite the current economy, click that subscribe button and turn on all notifications. We are breaking down the tax codes and the investment strategies that the big banks do not want you to master because they make money when you stay on the treadmill. Share this video with one friend who is complaining about their bills because this information could literally save them 5 years of their life. Now let us get back to the fifth expense. The fifth expense I cut was the social tax and convenience bloat. I am not talking about a small coffee, but rather the $150 Friday night dinners and the $40 DoorDash orders. Bob was spending $1,800 a month on food and entertainment. In 2026, service fees and delivery surcharges have reached an all-time high, and Bob was paying a 30% premium just for the convenience of not cooking. We cut this to $600 a month, which gave him $1,200 in found money. He replaced expensive dinners with rotating potlucks with friends who are also trying to retire early. The social tax is the price you pay to impress people you do not even like, so stop paying it. Sixth was the digital leech of subscription stacking. In 2026, every software is a subscription, and Bob had Netflix and Disney Plus and Hulu and ESPN Plus and YouTube Premium and the Wall Street Journal and gym memberships and a $60 a month wine club. Totaling $450 a month, it was death by 1,000 cuts. We nuked everything except two and saved $350 a month, which now goes straight into his Roth IRA, which in 2026 has a $7,500 limit for those under 50. Seventh was outsourced home maintenance. Bob was paying $200 for lawn care and $150 for a cleaning service and $100 for a pool guy every month. That is $450. I told Bob this is his new gym, and by doing his own yard work, he canceled his $100 a month gym membership, saving $550 total while improving his heart health. The eighth expense was insurance overload. We looked at Bob's portfolio and saw he had whole life insurance, which is a total scam for someone in his position, and high premium, low deductible auto and home insurance. We swapped the whole life for a 20-year term policy, saving $300 a month, and raised his deductibles to $2,500, which dropped his premiums by another $150 a month. When we add it all up for Bob, the housing and utilities saved $1,200, and the car payments saved $970, and the tax savings from the HSA were $175, and the investment fees were $520, and the food and social cuts were $1,200, and the subscriptions were $350, and the maintenance was $550, and the insurance over coverage was $450. The total monthly savings came to $5,415. That is $64,980 a year. Bob makes $165,000, but his take home after taxes and these expenses was barely enough to save 10%, but now Bob is saving over 50% of his income. When we ran the numbers through the 2026 retirement planner, Bob's exit date moved from age 60 to age 55, 5 years early. Bob did not lose his quality of life, but he lost the weight of these useless expenses, and he is not deprived, but optimized. You might be looking at Bob's $5,000 monthly savings and thinking that is great for Bob because he makes six figures. But the math of compounding does not care about your starting point, and it only cares about your savings rate. Whether you are cutting $5,000 or $500, the logic is identical. And every dollar you do not spend on a zombie expense today is $2 you do not have to earn when you are 60. To turn this into your reality, I want you to follow this 3-step 2026 early retirement blueprint. First, do a 24-hour financial autopsy by grabbing your 2025 year-end statements and your January 2026 bank feeds. Create 3 columns for essential and joy and waste. Look for the digital leech expenses and cancel them while you are watching this. Look at your Form 1040 Schedule 1. And if you did not see an adjustment for an HSA contribution on line 13, call your HR department tomorrow and pivot to an HDHP. Step 2 is the bridge fund strategy, because if you are going to retire 5 years early, you need to solve the 59.5 problem. You cannot touch your traditional 401k without a 10% penalty before that age unless you use specific strategies. So you put the money you saved into a brokerage account or a Roth conversion ladder. For Bob, that $5,000 a month is his bridge fund, and by the time he hits 55, that fund will be large enough to pay his expenses for those 5 gap years before his Social Security and 401k kick in. Step 3 is the 2026 lifestyle contract, where you write down your freedom number. When Bob realized he did not need the social tax or the car lease, his annual need dropped from $120,000 to $75,000, and that lower overhead is what actually bought him those 5 years. It has been 1 year since Bob made these cuts, and he moved into the townhome and drives the Lexus and cooks at home. He told me that for the first time in 20 years, he does not wake up at 3 a.m. wondering if a layoff will ruin his life, because he has 2 years of expenses in cash and his portfolio is growing faster than his spending. The 2026 economy is volatile and the tax laws are shifting and the old way of retirement is dead. But that is good news, because the power has shifted to the individuals who are willing to be intentional. You have the math and the case study and the 2026 tax codes. So the only thing left is the courage to be different. Your friends might think you are cheap when you turn down that dinner, and your neighbors might wonder why you are not driving the newest car, but let them wonder. While they are stressing about working until 70, you will be planning your first year of freedom at 55. If you are ready to take back your time, I have put an expense audit checklist in the description below, and it is free. So use it. Do me a favor and comment below with the one expense you are cutting this week, whether it is the car or the subscription or the social tax, because we need to hold each other accountable in the comments. If this deep dive helped you see a path to freedom you did not know existed, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. We are doing these 2026 math breakdowns every single week to make sure you are not just surviving this economy, but mastering it. Your money is a tool, so stop letting it be your master and start making it work for your freedom. Please like this video if you want more content that actually uses real tax forms and real numbers. And share this with your spouse or partner so you can get on the same page tonight. Thank you for watching and for being willing to do the hard work that leads to a truly wealthy life. And I will see you in the next video as we continue to build your path to financial independence in 2026.